I'm 4.5 years sober, and then RJ is 10 years, maybe a little over 10 years sober. So,
Coming
Cool.
up on
Awesome.
11.
oh, coming up at
Awesome.
11. Yeah, love it. So, yeah, we've got some, and yeah, well, as we get into it, we'll tell you, but we host events all the time without alcohol. So,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah,
right up our alley.
yeah, that's great. So yeah, we're just gonna keep this super informal. Like you guys
Yeah,
tell us your story, tell us what you do, and then at some point we want to give enough room for questions.
sure.
We have up until essentially 1 o'clock to kind of get all this done. And I would just say like, all of us are just like normal people. So some people but maybe don't drink. Some of us are social drinkers, probably mostly everybody just like I don't think there's like you're not the typical like maybe like we're not the group that's going to be showing up to AA, not that like only because but not the same we don't need it. I didn't need it. I don't know. Maybe I did need it. But anyway, we're just normal people living life. And
Yeah,
but we're obviously on this journey and we want to know how to get better at life. And this is one of the components that we're exploring. So happy
love
to have
it.
it. I'll pass the floor to you.
Okay, cool. I can start off. I'm excited to be here. I will say, Brady, I'm one of the crazy ones too. I'm training for my first ultra. I saw in your profile, so that's really cool. Um, yeah, so hi guys, my name's Christina Kimbrough. I'm the co-founder of Free Life LLC. I'm 4.5 years sober from an addiction to alcohol. This is a today we're going to be talking about like how to socialize without alcohol. I used to drink to help my social anxiety, to help fears of inadequacy. And so when I decided to get sober, it was hard because I don't think it goes without saying, like, we live in a culture inundated with alcohol. So it was really hard to navigate and figure out how do I do this thing. So my co-founder and I founded Free Life. We do, if anyone missed, we're in Virginia Beach area, Chesapeake in Virginia, but we do alcohol-free events. And my co-founder has become my friend in my community, but he reached out when he moved from Wisconsin, to just find friends that don't drink, right? And so we met up for coffee, and then it kind of just blew up from there. We started a meetup group and now it has like over 400 people in it. And we started doing events and community for people that don't drink, and it spawned into a non-alcoholic bar. So we do all kinds of cool stuff. We've done everything: networking, cold plunging, parties, that kind of thing. So, and then I'll just let RJ give a quick introduction because he's a great human too.
Yeah, so I'm RJ Zimmerman. I'm originally from the Green Bay area of Wisconsin, moved to Virginia about 3 years ago. And about coming up on 11 years ago, I looked in the mirror and I had two choices. I could get into the career that I wanted as a high voltage line tech and start a family, or I could continue to drink. And I was there was no way that I could continue to drink and do both. So luckily, I'm a stubborn asshole, and I chose I want to start a family and get into that career, which I was able to. And I stopped drinking, and so I didn't do AA or anything. About 4 years ago, I started a podcast called Untapped Keg that's about sobriety and mental health. And then a little bit over a year ago, I got certified as an alcohol-free life coach through This Naked Mind, which I coach in their program that's a year long for people who want to develop a healthier relationship to alcohol, which is exactly what we're talking about here. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to completely stop drinking, but what it does mean is it's not going to consume your thoughts. And that's really what a healthy relationship with alcohol is to me. And so for some people, like for me, it looks like not drinking at all. For others, it can look like special occasions and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, a part of socializing without alcohol is opening your mind to a willingness to be wrong, right? And how, okay, I need alcohol to be fun. Is that true, or am I making that true? Right? Am I saying that that's true because I have evidence of it, or am I making it be true because I don't remember being fun before I had alcohol? And it's okay, whichever one, but being honest with yourself can go a really long way. So I just kind of wanted to start the primer with that a little bit before we jump into this.
Bro, that is powerful. That is so powerful because, like, seriously, question ourselves: Am I okay with being wrong here? Maybe, like, maybe I'm not right. Wow, that is super powerful, man. Yeah, love that intro. And by the way, I worked for a power line company. That was my for almost 14 years before I do what I do now. But so I know what you're up to. That's
Awesome.
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 Yeah. Cool.
Love it.
All right. Well, thanks for those intros, guys. Like, I'll just keep passing you the floor. It's yours. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely. I love it. I have a notes out right here that I'll be like reading off of, but I agree with what you said, Brady. I'd love it to be, I mean, we have, talking points, but I'd love it to be a conversation because I feel like, I learn better. I have ADHD, so I do well when I can interact and talk.
Cool. Yeah.
But to start things off and to piggyback off what he says, I love that. That's where I wanted to start is I think big alcohol has lied to us and told us that we need alcohol at really everything, right? Like I always am amazed. I'm a runner and I'm like, why am I drinking beer in the middle of a run or at the end of a run? Or, that's just one example. So like shifting and like our mindset around the fact that maybe we don't need alcohol at every single event. I know that's a big part of the work we do is just showing people. Like I always say, we're not anti-alcohol. We just want to show people that like it doesn't have to be the main focal point of all of our social events. So I think that's the first part to start with is just reframing your experience, seeing social events as opportunities to connect, have fun, and then just build genuine relationships. We always say like one of our taglines is like we're forming deep connections without alcohol because it's of my belief that if we're not of sound mind or present, are we really even mindful or there and forming those deep connections? Um, and then a big thing I would say to add on to that is like, I know when you sometimes, so this may sound counterintuitive, but like I enjoyed drinking. I don't think we would keep doing it if we didn't, right? So I think it's healthy to acknowledge when you're choosing to quit alcohol. It was and is fun, right? There are days I'm 4.5 years sober, and there are days where I glamorize it. And I'm like, man, I really kind of miss a beer on the porch. But if we can kind of shift that and focus on the positive and remind ourselves of like the benefits of not drinking. Did you want to chime in, Brady? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're just like hitting on a lot of different things. I mean, I think the first thing is just like we have a long list of all these experiences that we're so used to having with alcohol. So for me, like recently, sunsets,
Yep.
right? Concerts. We
Mm,
experienced my first concert last week with my daughter,
yeah.
sober. And I can
Yeah.
guarantee you the connection that we had, and that I was like willing to put her on my shoulders for the entire time.
Mm,
And it was more about her versus me. Like a
mm,
lot of that, like I don't think I would have been as present. Um, like boating again, socializing on a patio,
yep.
like all these things I had like just tied directly to booze. And so I'm having a lot of these new experiences, like, wow, that was actually just as fun or making more connection to the people I was sitting with.
Yes. I love
Um,
it. Yeah.
yeah.
And you bring up a great point, right? So it's like you'll start to have all these first and you'll start to see how much better they are. So that's another tip I always say is give it time.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like it can be a little scary or weird because you're like, especially if it's been such a big part, like you said, of boating or whatever culture you're part of, give it a chance. That's what I tell people. Like, give it a chance, like try it. And if it's awkward, I always say this too, like an awkward moment never killed anyone. You know what I mean? Like we have to learn to stay. That's what I love about not drinking is and what's hard about it is it makes you be present, right? For all the moments, so the good and the bad. But I love that you said that. RJ, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think that just having that open mind for what is possible, right?
Mm,
And kind of like how I prefaced everything before, like, yeah, you know what? I may have enjoyed this moment with alcohol, and I may want a drink of alcohol, but kind of like what you said, okay, but what else do I want in my life?
mm,
What is the weight more? Like what I started off with, well, I wanted to start a career and a family.
mhm.
And I also wanted to drink alcohol. That wasn't something that I necessarily didn't want to do. What did I want more? And so when you have that mindset and you're like, instead of focusing on the, well, I don't want to drink, I don't want to drink, I don't want to drink, that kind of primes the mind to focus on the wanting to drink and you're fighting yourself. But if you are honest and you say, I do want to drink
Mm,
and I want this more, I want the fitness more, I want the difference of feeling better more, I want the connection with people more, I want these other things more than I want to drink. Now you're not fighting yourself and you're actually embracing the truths of your reality.
yep. Yeah.
Yeah, it really gives the decision power when you take control of it. It's like, hey, I've got two options here. I know I can, have drinks and have a pile of fun. That's a great time too. But I can be more present and feel great tomorrow and make sure I get my workout in. Two
Yeah.
options. Which one is my higher priority? And you start positioning that. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I
A
love
lot
it.
of I got a question. So a
Yeah.
lot of people, obviously even in this challenge, right? So they're going to like social events and having dinner with their family and friends, and a lot of our like everybody I know drinks,
Yep.
right? So when you start to go in there, it's easier when you're saying, "Hey, I'm doing a 100-day challenge," and one of the things is that I'm not drinking, right? It's easy because they're like, okay, well, that's fine. It's going to be an over. Can't you wait till they, one? But like, it's another thing when you're actually just saying, hey, I'm not having a drink because this is just a decision I make.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like, I guess in either sense, it's still like that awkwardness of showing up and having that doubt in your head of like making it awkward for everybody else. So, what are some things that you guys would suggest to people to try to, you know, make that more okay, whether it's in our head or in reality?
Well, and that's where I wanted to go.
Yep.
Maybe the real answer there is to stop taking responsibility for other people's feelings.
Mm.
And so showing up with, okay, I'm not drinking. Well, if somebody's gonna have ask questions and things like that, it's not necessarily awkward. They just want to know something more. We might feel awkward, but that's on us. And if they're awkward, that's on them because you're not asking them to change anything else.
Mm.
So if you stop taking responsibility for other people and their feelings and honestly their actions, period, like why do you care so much about what I have in my glass? I'm still here having a conversation. I'm having fun. Like there's no reason for this. And so if you can have the mindset of, well, I'm going to show up and you know what? I'm not drinking and it's just a personal choice. You don't have to go any further than that if you don't want to. And there's
Sure.
going to be some people that ask those questions. But as you get more experience, the first time is going to be awkward. I'm not saying that it removes the awkwardness, but what I am saying is take the responsibility for your own awkwardness that you're feeling and then recognize that you can actually change that to in those situations. And the more times you go through it, the easier and easier it gets, just like everything else that's a skill.
Yep, that's so good. And that was Brady. You're pretty much running it for us. So that was amazing. Because that was the next thing was, okay, so now we're at a social event. Like, what do we do? Some strategies. What he said, and then so the piggybacking off that, it does get easier. The other thing I tell people, people are not thinking about you as much as you think they are. They're just not. They really aren't. Like I think we center ourselves, which makes sense. We're in our own heads, but I've told people, people don't care. You know what I mean? So I always say that. And if they do, it's like 30 seconds or so, and then they're on to the next thing. So I think in our head, we build it up. The other thing I will say, and we love non-alcoholic drinks. I'm not sure how familiar y'all are with non-alcoholic drinks, but even just having a drink in your hand, if you're not comfortable or you just don't want to talk about it, look, I'm in recovery. I don't want to talk about it at every networking event. I just don't. Like, I want to hang out with people. So non-alcoholic drinks have been a game changer for us. So if you guys ever want recommendations or anything, please let us know. We're quickly becoming experts in that field. But it just helps because then you don't have to talk about it. So
Yeah, I love that. And actually, that was kind of where my next head was going. If you guys are cool, we can kind of
yeah,
go in that direction. Is because
sure.
like, so now that I'm and now I say that I don't drink, and it's weird. It's funny because it ruffles a lot of feathers too, which is
Sure.
like interesting. But that's fine because it helps certain people, right? Which is kind of what matters to me anyway. But yeah, so everybody shows up to my cottage with an entire box of all this NA beer, right? And they're getting it from like online
Yeah.
places, and there's actually stores that only sell non-alcoholic drinks, which
Yep.
is cool. So they're making these special trips out of their way and spending hundreds of dollars on all these drinks. And of course, when you drink non-alcoholic, you don't drink 20 anymore, like I used to. You drink one or two. So now I've got like literally years worth of non-alcoholic drinks. But like, what do you guys know about where to get them and like, good options, low calorie options? Like, where do you guys get your drinks?
Yeah. So there's a great resource called Zero Proof Nation. And the founder is amazing. Her name's Laura Silverman. It's a website. You can Google it. And she has like an interactive map of like all the different non-alcoholic shops, all the different like online stores. So like out by us, we have a dry bottle shop is what it's called, but there's even bars now. Like I'm in Cleveland visiting family. They have a dry bar, so there's a whole non-alcoholic bar. So it really just depends on where you're at. But there's also online. Absence of Proof is an online store that you can go to buy I think they definitely have liquor. They definitely have an assortment of non-alcoholic drinks, and it really depends on your flavor profile. But honestly, it's wild right now. The options are really cool, and a lot of big stores carry stuff. Like we just did an event, White Claw sponsored it. White Claw has its own non-alc, and that's in every major. I'm positive, every major grocery store.
Insane. So it's so interesting. So I was literally on the beach the other day, and this guy, I was just like walking along. There's hundreds of people on the beach. This guy is holding a tall can of beer, and I
Yeah.
recognize it because it's this Lake-based brewing company, which is a microbrewery. So they brew in tall cans, and I'm like, that beer is amazing. Like, how long you been not drinking NA beer for? He's like, I actually own the company.
Yeah.
So he just sent me,
Whoa.
yeah, like what a
Okay.
small world, right?
Yeah.
He just shipped me a 24 pack of tall cans of all his different brews. And I'm like, so talk to me about like how you guys do it in the space. And
Yeah.
he's like, the microbreweries were super collaborative, obviously, when it comes to beer, like if it was different hops and things,
Yeah.
they would share, right? But when it comes to the NA stuff, it's like radio silence because that's how big of a marketplace this is now.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, that's like, it's pretty savage. And because like there is clearly, I think the important note is like there are some really bad ones.
Yeah.
There's some really, really good ones. And it is fun to experiment. So
Yep.
our friends actually, the last two groups of people that showed up, they brought one group brought 2 bottles of red NA,
Nice. Yep.
and then the other brought white wine, which was super good too. So,
Yeah.
I find it very fun just to test it and experiment it too, which is a good thing to do with a couple or a group of friends.
Yeah. Yep. So if you guys like canned mocktails or like a non-alcoholic cocktail, Target has Mingle and Mocktail Club. And we purchase those wholesale and work with both and love them. We have like a mojito, they have a mojito, cranberry Cosmo. I mean, and if you're health focused, which I am as well, they're low sugar. I mean, some of them are less than 6 grams. It's like anything, it depends. You have to do your own research, but most of them are low sugar because what I love about this movement is if you're not drinking, you're probably doing it for many reasons, right? So we're trying to be health conscious. So these drinks are also not bad for you either. It's been really cool.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's lots of resources out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just I think I'll be spending some time on zeroproof.com or
Yeah.
Zero Proof Nation and go to the map.
Yeah, so we have a couple comments. Someone said make your own tea, which I love. On that note, we have one of our good friends brews kombucha. Like kombucha is such a great option. Like, and then the website was Zero Proof Nation. That one is going to be an interactive map for you on like where you can find bars, restaurants, anything. And if you're on Instagram, you can follow her on Instagram, Laura Silverman. And then Absence of Proof is a site where you can purchase stuff and get it shipped to you.
Cool. So
Yeah.
Christina, they like some people may be concerned, like, I mean, or what do you know about like, if you truly felt like you had a problem and then having an NA beer, is there any like science or proof that hey, that does like lead to having a real beer or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am in recovery, so I think this is a great conversation. I waited 3.5 years to have my first non-alcoholic beer. As far as science goes, I think the space is so new. I don't think that I know of anyone studied it or anything reputable, like a peer-reviewed study. But I say to have a healthy respect for the addiction or whatever your struggle was. So if you feel like it will be hard for you, then maybe avoid it, right? Or if you had a hard time with beer in particular, because I feel like all of us had that our one drink or whatever that we loved, maybe that's what you avoid. Like I said, I have a healthy respect for it. I waited 3.5 years. The day I tried it, I made sure that I was with a friend that was also in recovery. Just so that way I could be honest and upfront. And like if I felt triggered, we could talk it through. But I was fine. Like it didn't trigger anything in my brain. The chemicals were gone. You know what I mean? The stuff that made my brain do what it did when I was drinking just aren't there. So I didn't struggle. But I do know that some people in recovery, in our community just don't touch it at all. And that is so valid. And I always want to hold space for that. I don't struggle with it. RJ will, I'm sure will have some great.
Yeah. So on this one, this is a great question. And like what you said, Christina, does it change your mental state? The answer is no. Okay, so if I'm having a non-alcoholic beer and I feel like I want beer, okay, there's something that I'm asking alcohol to do, right? So what is the job that I'm asking for from alcohol in this moment? Like, what am I looking for? Am I looking at lowering my anxiety? Am I looking for, I kind of have high emotions right now and I want to get back to a baseline level that I'm used to? Is it like a signpost of I'm done with work, and changing that mental state a little bit is that sign that, okay, now I don't have to think about my, like, what was going on at work before. Now I can continue with my day, right? There's different things that it could be. So if you look at it as its flavors, and it's not necessarily like a non-alcoholic drink, because the truth is less than 0.5% is less alcohol per volume than a ripe banana, than in most grape juices. It does not affect the brain except for a placebo. And when you understand that, it's like, oh, well, and like you said, Christine, if you have a drink of it and you notice it does trigger you a little bit more, okay, put some space between you and the times that you got drunk. So as you get through and you put more time in there, it will probably lessen, but also creating a space where, all right, I am 3 years, like you're talking about, Christina, I'm going to be around these people that I know will be supportive, that I don't have to explain things to. And now with that, you can start to explore a little bit more.
Yeah.
But right away, like off the top, within the first month, I had no duels. Like, listen, back in my day when I stopped drinking, all we had was O'Doul's. We didn't have these great tasting non-alcoholic beer now. So I had no duels, which is, a light beer. Who likes the flavor of light beer? Not very many people, me included. I didn't like the flavor. I wasn't drinking Bud Light for the flavor. I mean, I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
Nobody
And
is.
so, yeah. And so I had it and it didn't trip anything inside of me because it wasn't changing my brain chemistry. So it wasn't giving me necessarily that trigger that I was looking for. But that was me personally. And so if there's something that trips you a little bit, okay, be aware of it. If it's something you want to work through and you feel good working through, try to work through it. And if it's something that you're like, I just don't want to deal with this right now, okay, try a different flavor of something else. And that can be your go-to drink. So
yeah. The one big thing that you said there, RJ, was like, what is the job that I'm looking at alcohol to do? And that's that's a powerful thing, because like that was the big thing that for me personally, that I realized, I'm like, holy, I'm actually using this to, remove the fear of what's going on in the business. I'm using it to, have fun. I'm using it to do this and all these different scenarios. And that was really actually that thing that helped me, that in my head associated it to being more like a drug. Right. And okay, it's actually sort of like my escape, instead of actually solving the problem, or being present or whatever, right? So that's just an interesting thing. And so I kind of noticed just recently, when am I having a non-alcoholic beer? And it was, now I'm really connecting it to when I just want to sit, because I don't sit very often. So I noticed, like yesterday, I cracked a tall can, I literally sat and just looked into the water and just enjoyed it. Right. And so you're starting, okay, I'm gonna use it still to, like, just sit still and just have a conversation or whatever, right? And so I think that's a really powerful thing for people just to, maybe tie on to.
Yeah, I love that.
and something you said there too, Brady, that you can use, that I had somebody, her name is Jessica Bencomo. She goes by She Snaps on YouTube and Twitch. She asks herself a question before she drinks alcohol, before she smokes weed or does mushrooms, all these other MDMA, like ayahuasca, stuff like that. Am I looking to escape my life right now, or am I looking to enhance it? And so that question alone has allowed her to cut way back, especially on marijuana use, to a point where now it's not interfering with my life. Because if I'm trying to escape something, I need to stop what I'm doing, period, and figure out what that is. If I'm trying to enhance my life, I can even ask, what is it that I'm looking to be enhanced?
Mm.
And is this actually going to enhance it for me? And now you're doing it because you want to, and you're not looking to escape. And maybe you will be enhancing it, maybe you won't. But you can ask that question more fully rather than just acting out of autopilot, like unconsciously, subconsciously. You're making that conscious decision, and you're moving to be the person that you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty powerful question too, because like, a lot of people do say, hey, I love having fun, I love having drinks. And like I'm not against drinking. I personally don't care what anybody does. Um, I'm controlling my own behaviors. And then but and that almost makes it okay, right? It's like, hey, I actually feel this is going to enhance it, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Right. And if you believe it, give her, go, rip it up. But it's another just kind of cool question, because then you do take control and take power of your decision versus just going to the default of, hey, I drink during every event I go to or every experience I have, which was definitely by far what I did. Like, I mean, there wasn't,
Same.
like if I had friends over, if I wanted to relax, if I was going to a party, it doesn't matter. If it was a lunch meeting, there was people near me, we were drinking. Right. And the worst part of it is like the other thing that I've kind of noticed was like whatever we do as leaders gives everybody permission to do the same or in excess. So then I would actually like provoke it.
Yep.
Right. And
Yep.
then, and once you start taking ultimate accountability, I started realizing, holy shit, I'm actually impacting other people's lives, not just mine.
Yep. Yeah. And I will say, if it's a really exciting time to quit alcohol, go sober, alcohol free, whatever you want to say, like, back to that conversation on like, what do I say? Like, hold it with pride. It is really fucking cool to not drink. Like, it's not like you're part of the cool kids club now. Like, it's, cause like it's beyond not drinking. It's a whole lifestyle, right? Of I value my time. I don't have time to be hungover.
Yeah. I think that's a really great point to recognize is like, and I kind of noticed that because it's like I remember when my stepdad, he was an alcoholic and he struggled with it for years. And I remember when I drank and obviously, and he was trying to not, he was having a duels, funny enough, RJ. And in my head, instantly it was like, oh, you're an alcoholic. That's why you have to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like that anymore.
No,
I
no.
don't. I think it is more for us that just want to get better at life.
That's right.
Like be healthier, right? Like that can be the reason we do this.
Well, we also say that all the time. So I used AA to get sober and it didn't resonate with me. It was just kind of what I used because it was there. I don't call myself an alcoholic. I don't even we don't subscribe to a disease model. So really a lot of like RJ and I have discovered is you don't have to ask yourself like, do I have a disease, whatever. It's like, how is it impacting my life, right? So is my relationship with alcohol negative? Is it keeping me from being who I want to be? Okay, then yeah, we need to reevaluate it. And that's a lot of the work RJ does and helps people figure out, right?
Yeah.
So I
So
think
what do you
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's what we have like, for y'all. So if you want to open it up, if people would like to engage, let me know.
Yeah, let's have some questions.
Sure.
So feel free to turn your mic on and ask RJ and Christina anything you want.
So actually, I'd like to piggyback off that, what you just said, Christina, with regards to not considering yourself an alcoholic, but more of just a lifestyle change, because I also stopped drinking about 4.5 years ago. It was in January of 2020, like right before COVID hit, when everybody was staying home and like drinking all the things, is when I stopped. But I started drinking when I was probably about 14 years old, and probably pretty steadily when I was about 17 and 18, and then started bartending. And so it was like an every night, every day experience. And then it just became a part of my personality and like who I was. And not really correlating of like why I was drinking. Was it to self-medicate? Was it to combat social anxiety? And because I was so young when I started, drinking, now that I have been sober for about 4.5 years, I'm starting to like process feelings and emotions in a different way and started learning who I actually am. And so I don't identify myself as an alcoholic, but it was just being tired of waking up hungover and feeling like shit, and not being able to be the best version of myself because my head is still in a cloud from the night before. So can you speak a little bit more about recovery versus alcoholism.
Yeah, I think RJ, you want to take that one because he had like he talked all about this. Like anyway, he's gonna be good at on this one.
Well, this is a really great um, moment to point out, like, why do you have to be an alcoholic to change your relationship with alcohol?
Right.
Right. And that's what society's painted us into a corner with. And whatever vernacular you use it. The one that resonates with you, like, really take it. But for me personally, right, I never really said that I was sober or alcoholic or things like that until I started the podcast and I started to be surrounded by the language more. And I was like, okay, I'll use it. It didn't really matter to me though. And what I noticed was when I didn't drink and I was still going through life in the same way, that would be like the sobriety piece. That would be the piece where I just removed alcohol. But when I started the self discovery, which was after I started the podcast, when I went through the training to become an alcohol free life coach, like really discovering what my emotions are, how they're showing up, what a lot of my cycles were that were repeating from like childhood that came through, whether I was in high school, college, afterwards. When I really started digging into that, that was like the recovery piece where I started to really what it means to me to be authentic to yourself, right? And accepting who you are is understanding who you are and allowing yourself to be that. Like that's what authenticity and acceptance is to me. And so when you can define that and look into it and then start to show up how you want to show up rather than how you feel you should want to show up, now you're living a life that, you know, you're taking your power back, you're choosing it. And I would say that that would be more of the recovery thing. And with that, like recovery, it could be mental health, right? It could be so much of that focus where we used to look at, you know, a lot of people used to look at it like, oh, my drinking alcohol, my using drugs, my addiction, that is the cause of my mental health. But now everybody's starting to understand actually it's a symptom of the mental health of something underneath. It's not the cause. Even though there are causes there, there's something that I was looking for from alcohol, from the drugs, from other things that can be attributed to it. For me, one of them, yes, I have ADHD, so it turns out I was drinking for self-medication too, and I was late diagnosed. But another thing is acceptance, and I was looking for acceptance from my peers, but ultimately from myself because I couldn't accept myself because I thought there was something wrong with me. And when I recognized that, which was only 2 or 3 years ago, like now I could really start to heal from what I was drinking for and the cause of that. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. That's a great one, Brianna.
Yeah, I think the self-acceptance is a big piece of it. And the the alcohol was more of like the, what did you say? Like the symptom of instead of the other way around. So
Yes.
yeah, I'm really digging this. And then the mocktails for me, like now that I'm on this health journey, I just don't like the calories, right? So I like staying away from all of the virgin pina coladas and, you know, all the things where it's like extra sugar. If I'm trying to, you know, lose weight, that's not helping the situation out any. So I'm good with water, like an unsweet tea or whatever. So, but I guess the frou-frou things are kind of fun sometimes for a special occasion or whatever, but it's not really like a trigger or a temptation to me, like, oh, if I drink this, am I going to want one with rum in it or whatever? It's just from a health standpoint, just not having the extra calories and the extra sugar period. So,
and there are making more mocktails too that have that less sugar, so you can get the flavor you're looking for with that is in a more healthy way as well. So if you keep your eyes open for that, you could also get some of that depth of flavor in not a lot of the sugars, not a lot of the additives that are found in a lot of other drinks.
Yeah. Dude, you almost had me in tears because I was like digging into myself there while you were talking, RJ. And it's just like, you know, because I mean, I haven't gone to therapy for this at all, but it's like I probably should at some point, and maybe not for this, but just like to deal with past stuff, right? Because childhood was a little wild. But yeah, when you start to actually trying to figure out why it was, and for me, it's like probably just not being not even knowing who we were. For me, I'm like,
Yes,
you know,
same.
when we were like probably really the emotional intelligence probably stopped when I was 14, you know, and I think there's, you know, not, you know, just the belief and the like, who am I? Believing that I was the person that I was in high school and trying to like pretend that I'm this dad and this other stuff and not having the connection between it all because I think the emotional intelligence just stops. I don't know. I don't know about it, but like that hit home big time, dude. So I'm gonna keep
Well, do
thinking.
you want me to get into how I identified my self-hatred?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's amazing.
so my kids come home with my ex-wife. I was recording a podcast and it was a low mental health day. And this was 3 years ago. And they come running in, they yell, "Daddy, I love you." And my first thought was, how could you love such a piece of shit? What is wrong with you? That was my first thought. And it was really quiet. And because I had been working for about a year and a half on my awareness and things like that, that's why I was able to hear that little bit of subconscious. And I realized like I'm holding it against my kids that they love their dad. And so I go and I look in the mirror later in the day, and it bothered me that I was doing that. And I noticed there was a slight recoil when I'm looking in the mirror. And I was like, oh, I hate myself. If I'm being honest with myself, I hate myself. And then I started looking at moments throughout my life, and it's like, I have been operating from a place of self-hatred my entire life. I can trace it all the way back to childhood, to 4 or 5 years old. And when I recognize that, it's like, okay, what can I do to change this? Because it's not okay to hold it against my kids that they love their dad. And it was not going to, I love you. It's not going to, RJ, I'm proud of you. RJ, you're incredible. Look at everything that you've done. It was just, am I an okay person? Yeah, I can say I'm an okay person. All right, we're going to just shrug our shoulders and say, you're okay. And so that's how I built my internal talk. Like every time I was really critical of myself, every time I was really tearing myself down with some hatred, it was shrugging my shoulders and saying, I'm okay. I'm okay. And like getting myself to neutral was all I had to do to change that thought process and allow me to show up in a different way. And so recognizing and digging into where did that self-hatred come from? Where did this self-criticism come from? Like giving myself the understanding that, yes, I do hate myself and I don't have to anymore. And like that was really, really powerful.
Wow, dude. So how did you give yourself space to have those thoughts in a manner that you knew that you're going to move forward if you kept doing it?
As far as stopping
just
critic,
trying to reprogram your brain and talk to yourself and give you those messages about yourself and to give your time to actually think about it. Like, did you work on that by yourself or did you work with somebody else on that?
I did most of this by myself, and I don't necessarily recommend that. But Brene Brown really helped me with this understanding how I did it. And what I ultimately did was I separated myself and my identity from the outcome, from the event, from the other things. So it's not that I am a piece of, I've done some shitty things. And so now instead of me saying I am, and you can't change, like that's the end. That's where you stop. Like I am whatever this is. Now I put myself in a place where I'm stuck. But if I say that was, or I did, like now I'm creating some actions. Okay, I can change actions. I can change that, how that's going. Just because I did something, that doesn't define who I am. Yeah. And that's really what it was in giving myself the space to, yes, I'm going to have these thoughts and they're going to occur, but they don't have to control my next actions. And so spacing, like I have this thought, and then before I would act, right? And so putting some time between the thought and the action, that was something that was really key too.
Yeah, that reminds me of a quote, RJ, that somebody said, or has said. It was like, what you did doesn't define you, but I think it's like what you do does. Like what you do in the future will start to define you. Right? Because a lot of us look back and be like, this is who I am. right? And it's just because we did these certain things doesn't mean that's who we are. That's right. It's like we can actually change, who we are like right now and going forward. It's our habits, it's our daily actions, right? And you start to believe in this new you, right? You start to identify as whatever actions you start to consistently do, not what you did. And that to me was kind of an interesting thing that helped me like redefine my identity as an athlete, right? And in like, 6 months ago, I would not have called myself an athlete. Now I can run 100 miles, right? And it's just, before I would have definitely identified myself as an entrepreneur, a father, and like right on my vision board, it was work hard, play hard, right? And so like you start, and those things, like although we are fathers, we are people who work, like that's still, those are jobs or roles that we kind of have to play, but we are more in that than that, in my opinion. Like just because we're now 40, not 20, doesn't mean we can't be athletes or can't be anything you want in life.
And that's like, go ahead.
I was actually going to ask, do you think that there's any correlation between ADHD and drinking to suppress?
Yes, especially if you have a late diagnosis.
Yep.
There's studies that show I'm not going to say the numbers, but it's significantly higher, more likely to drink more alcohol, to use drugs and develop, quote unquote addiction, is if you have ADHD and you're not, and you don't, like you're not diagnosed, right? So like that self-medicating side of things. And not just that, you're searching for dopamine because in ADHD brain, you automatically have a lower dopamine count. So one way to get that is alcohol, drugs, shopping. A lot of the traditional like addictions would be quick dopamine hits, which you're looking for with ADHD.
Really good question.
Christina, coming from you as a fellow female in that space, how long have you known that you had ADHD?
Yeah, that's a great question. Recently, I would say last 3 to 6 months, I had lovingly had people in my life that are like, do you think you might have that? And then my therapist recently said it, and I was like, get in line. Okay. So yes, it's a recent diagnosis. I haven't pursued getting it
official.
Yeah. I know it. I'm working with a good therapist to manage it. So, but it tracks.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
I am medicated too. I do take medication for mine, and I don't believe that it like affects sobriety or anything like that. Like it's for my brain and how my brain is wired. So that's something that can come up too as well. You take medication for this, is that getting in the way? And the truth is, if you're working with your doctor, you're working with your therapist, probably not.
Yeah.
And that's why
I think that is a little bit of the fear for me, is because I am sober with regards to everything. Like I don't even take aspirin for a headache or anything like that. I don't have anything, and I just try to manage it with drinking lots of water, what food I eat and stuff like that to try to manage exercise, but maybe there's a certain level of needing something. I don't know. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I'm still on a self-discovery journey with regards to that. And I was so surprised that you said like literally within the last 3 to 6 months, because that's just recently been an eye-opener for me too. And especially, with quitting drinking the 4.5 years ago. So we're on the same point with regards to that. So it's like, wow, do you really need to be, free of all of the things out of your system to sort of like process and become in tune with your emotions to sort of realize that, oh, I've been like this all along. And maybe that was what that stemmed from. So I learned a thing today, you guys.
That's the goal. Who's got another question for Christina or RJ?
I got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
All right, Pat.
Yeah, so like I was told like you gotta like replace your thoughts, and I just struggle with that. I mean, one of my biggest problems is like, like for me, I usually save my emails till the end of the day. and I like to hit like a happy hour somewhere, hang out with some friends and knock out, maybe 50, 60 emails, or, I'll have a couple drinks and I'll make some sales calls, and I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like I sell better. And so I have these associations with alcohol and liquor in my brain that I feel, and I'm not sitting here getting drunk. It's like I'll be there from 4 to 6, and then I'm home cooking dinner and eating with the family. It's not like, but it is something I look forward to on a daily, or something that I've had a really hard, I was struggling with this. I mean, like this whole 0 to 100 has kind of brought it to light for me. And it's something that my family's talked to me about. And so I know I need to fix it. But I don't know, I struggle with the associations of like yeah, work and emails, and I don't know, that people telling me I need to replace the habit, or I need to replace something, and I just don't know if that's it, or if what you guys think about that.
It's a really good question.
So, Pat, this is so common. It's so common. I want to start with that. And I like the fact that you are already attributing it to associations, because that's exactly what it is. Is it necessarily the alcohol, or is it the environment that you're in? Right. And so could it just be putting yourself in that environment without drinking relaxes you to the point to be able to get the same things? Or is it maybe trying a new environment, whether that's, going to a different place, or going home a little bit early to do your emails and make some sales calls, a place where you feel relaxed and are getting that? Like, what can you do to allow yourself to not try and be perfect, but just allowing you to be you? Because that's what is probably allowing you to crush the sales more, is you being you. So is it alcohol that's allowing that? And maybe it's not. Maybe it's some of the other things. And if you put yourself in that place and you just maybe have a good NA beer, like an Athletic, or you're just surrounded by friends kind of a thing, and you're hanging out and you're just able to have a little bit of the same thing, maybe you'll be able to respond and show up in that way. And also just understanding, like, feeling like you have a healthy relationship with alcohol again. Like, that doesn't mean that just because you want to change it doesn't mean that there's a problem or there's anything to fix or things like that. And I don't necessarily know that you have to completely replace things, but you can put a bunch of little things. It doesn't have to be one thing, a 1-for-1 substitute. It can be a bunch of little things that are in place with that. So,
Well,
Yeah, I think that's really so I relate. I drank all the time out in wine bars and would work because they had good Wi-Fi, and I totally understand that. And I have worked in sales myself, so I get it. I would say something that helped me, like, it could be, again, maybe we believe in like a harm reduction model, right? So it's where maybe you do have one beer, and this could be controversial to some people, but we've seen it work, right? So you have one beer and then you take an NA beer. So instead of 6 beers, you're having 3. You know what I mean? And even just starting there. And I will say sobriety compounds on itself, because I'm sure you're already seeing it. You sleep better, you feel better. So sometimes this happens, people start drinking less, and then they're like, wait, I really like this sober thing. So
yeah, I mean, I can feel like I've experienced some few things, like, like when I do presentations or like speeches in front of people, man, I always took like 2, 3 shots before I went on stage. And I've just always done that. And so like the other night was the first time I actually went up there like completely sober. And man, and I killed it. And so I feel like I'm just kind of doing this and like proving to myself that. But it is hard because, man, I'm always that guy, like the life, and people are, and I've drank so much and I party so much that when I show up, people are like, what the hell? Like, and I'll show up to a restaurant and they see me parking my car and the drink's already made before I even walk in. That is hard for me. Like,
no.
And so now all the bartenders know, all the restaurants I frequent, they all know not to, make me drink when I might not be drinking. And so, but man, the first 30 days was difficult for me because it was just it was really, really hard. And I still struggle with it, especially when I'm arguing with my wife or I'm having a problem with work or staff or whatever. It's just difficult. Like first thing I think of is fuck, I need a drink. And it's hard to replace these thoughts for me. I just didn't know if, there was a strategy or what I needed to do. And, I've already worked out for the day. And in Kansas City, where I'm at, man, sometimes it's 100, 105. Nobody's trying to be outside. So it's hard for me to get outside. And it's just difficult for me to kick these thoughts, that keep coming back.
Yeah, because it's like when you use the alcohol to, I don't know, take the edge off or to get the warm and fuzzies, what do you do to replace that? And like you're saying, you already did your workout for the day. Like what else is there? So that's amazing to hear that, you went on stage for the first time sober and you absolutely killed it. I know working in the bar, I'd get up there and sing karaoke and I'd have like couple beers and a couple shots before I'd get up there, and I don't have the guts to do it without the alcohol in my system. So I'm at a loss for words with regards to that, but I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, dude, great job. I mean, I remember what you and I had a conversation before you went down this 100-day challenge, and you're in it, man, and you're doing it. Good. And so I just wanted to let you know, I relate 100% to I would be drinking, have a couple beers if I was going to do a PowerPoint. If I would have a couple beers if I was going to make a presentation to pitch a joint venture partner. I would have a couple beers before I'd go on stage, right? All the time. Same thing. I felt like I had to. But honestly, one of the things that's helped me, and this is honestly this stuff.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, honestly, because it just lets me dial in. It gets me the same focus. It takes the edge off for whatever reason. And same when I go on stage, it just connects the dots. I just get more confident because I just cognitively things are connecting better. It works for me, right?
Brady, what is that?
It's alpha brain on it. And honestly, it's just again, it's setting the mood, right? And to me, I'll sit here and have one and just everything works. And that's really helped me disassociate having to have the beer or the booze for these certain things that are so critical to business, right?
Yeah.
And easy to justify because it produces results. So anyway, that's one of the things that's really helped me.
One other thing I've noticed is man, how cheap going out to eat is when you don't drink. Man, my bill, my lunch was $8, $13, before lunch was a $60, $75 event, couple Manhattans.
Yeah.
You're going to be paying a lot of money. How much money I'm saving is crazy.
All right, guys, we've got 3 minutes left. I just want to, thank Christina and RJ. You guys, seriously, honestly, this has been a great conversation. I mean, you hit the strings for me personally on many different levels. Where can the people or everybody find you, and how can you help people if they want to get more involved with what you guys have to offer?
Yeah, you can follow so Free Life we do is our business page, and we do talk about all the time about how to stay sober, living a sober life. That's Free Life LLC, and then my personal is C Kimbrough 1, and then I'll let RJ. He also has some offerings he wanted to share too because he does support group and all that. So I'll let him take that away.
Yeah, if you go to Untapped Keg, you'll find the podcast. Go to untappedkeg.com and you'll find the social and everything. I'm Untapped Keg everywhere. But the first and third Monday of each month at 8 p.m. Eastern time, I have a free coaching call that's group coaching. It's just about, we could talk about alcohol, but we've talked about anything. And so if you're interested in that, if you go to untappedkeg.com, you'll be able to find more information and sign up for that. So, and that's the first and third Monday of every month, and it's a free group call. So
I love that, bro. I love that. I know, Jessica, sorry, I'm going to just try to slide one more in. Jess, you did have a question. Let's just take the opportunity to see if you can get this answered.
Yeah, it can be a quick one. I just wanted to hear what your favorite benefits are of being sober. What are the one or two things where you're that's worth it to me?
The sex.
Okay.
All right.
That's a good one.
It's so much better because the connection, the presence, ability to be there and adapt, like that's one that isn't often talked about, and it's one that I've been talking about more lately. So I wanted to bring that up, especially among adults. Let's be honest, like that is huge. It's way better. And so that is something that really is a benefit that a lot of people are like, well, I can let go more when I drink and stuff like that. But the truth is, like, it affects the way your body's responding. So you're not actually showing up completely as you. And so that is one of the massive ones. And then another one is my taste has come back in a way that I can like figure out what is in like a sauce. And so like my taste buds as well. So those would be my two.
Man, where do I start? I'll go fast. Everything, right? So I can run, I can show up and be the person that I say that I'm gonna be. I'm there. I do what I say I'm gonna do. I also don't make an idiot out of myself at like all these, drinking, like at events, it's just, I mean, I could go on. And I've also I love being in recovery. I love being self-aware and knowing when I need to take care of myself. And yeah, I'll leave it there. But so many benefits.
That's awesome. Thank you.